Ever wonder what it takes to bring a legendary toy franchise back to life on the big screen? Today, we're diving into the epic journey of Masters of the Universe, the 2026 film that takes He-Man back to Eternia.
Hey, I'm Garrett, feeling pretty excited to explore this topic today.
And I'm Leah, thrilled to dive into this cinematic adventure with you. Welcome to Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett.
All right, let's set the stage for this one. We're talking Masters of the Universe, released in 2026. It's the second live-action take on He-Man, and it aims to be a true sword and sorcery adventure, which basically means big fantasy with magic, warriors, and epic quests centered on heroic characters rather than sprawling political intrigue. Here's a thought I've been turning over. When I was a kid, I found an old He-Man action figure in a box in my grandpa's attic. No packaging, no name, just this ridiculously buff hero with a sword and a kind of space barbarian vibe. I remember, staring at this thing and trying to reverse engineer the story from the toy. Who is this dude? Why does he have a sword? What world does he come from? I'd prop him up on my desk and sketch out wild castles and skull-shaped mountains, not even knowing those were real places in the lore. Then I finally caught reruns of the old TV series, and it was like a light bulb. Oh, that castle is Castle Grayskull. That villain with the skull face is Skeletor. Suddenly all my doodles had names. That one little mystery toy basically opened a door to a whole universe for me. And yeah, that kind of blew my mind.
That's a story worth telling, and it tracks with why the 2026 film hits the way it does. Masters of the Universe is an American fantasy action-adventure that revives the He-Man saga for theaters while drawing from decades of toys, animation, and comics. It recenters Eternia, which is the planet where the mythic action takes place, and it puts Castle Grayskull back at the heart of the story. Critics, for the most part, were positive on how it balances fan nods with a clean origin path for newcomers.
Totally. Speaking of who got it to screen, steering this version is director Travis Knight, the filmmaker who's credited here as the one who finally got the project to the finish line after years of changes. The screenplay credit goes to Chris Butler, Aaron Nee, Adam Nee, and David Callahan. For quick clarity, a screenplay credit is the Writers Guild of America's way of saying these writers materially crafted the scenes and dialogue you see on screen. The story credit adds Alex Litvak and Mike Finch alongside the Nee brothers, meaning their earlier plotting formed the spine of what became the movie.
Let's unpack the origin and the road here, because it's long. First, the 1987 live-action film. That one has grown into a cult favorite over time. It leaned more into Earth as a setting, which gave it a different flavor. The 2026 movie tips its hat to that earlier film with a cameo by Dolph Lundgren, who originally played He-Man. He shows up as a Macho Man gym-goer who crosses paths with Adam. It's brief, but it's a sweet bridge between eras.
And in between those two movies was, an odyssey. The project bounced across studios for almost 18 years. There were reported talks in 2007 about a John Woo take, then Warner Bros., then Sony, then a Netflix phase, and finally Amazon MGM Studios. Each stop tried to crack the same puzzle. How do you do big, vivid Eternia without breaking the bank or losing the tone? The Writers Guild's long list of additional literary material credits reflects that marathon, with names like Lindsay Beer, Will Beal, Peter Craig, Terry Rossio, and even David Odell, who wrote the 1987 film. That tells you how iterative the development was.
Why did it take so long to settle, do you think? Beyond just budget, was it tone or the scale of world building?
I'd say both. Masters of the Universe blends science fantasy and mythic imagery. It's swords, sorcery, and also ray guns and hovercrafts. Getting that tone to feel cohesive is hard. Then there's the scale. David S. Goyer's earlier approach reportedly aimed for a Lord of the Rings level epic, which studios flagged as too expensive. Netflix actually spent around $30 million on development before canceling in 2023 due to budget concerns. So yeah, scope was a real sticking point. Amazon MGM ultimately found a version that kept the spectacle, but mounted it with a leaner, UK-based shoot.
Speaking of which, Principal photography, which is the main period of filming, started in January 2025 in London at Sky Studios Elstree. Cinematographer Fabian Wagner oversaw the look, blending grounded earth textures with those atmospheric Eternia spaces like Castle Grayskull and the forbidding Snake Mountain landscapes. They also used Bray Film Studios for set-heavy sequences and real locations like Canary Wharf, Wells Cathedral, Wookey Hole Caves, and Beer Quarry Caves. That mix of practical spaces with digital augmentation helps the fantasy feel tangible.
On the technical side, the visual effects, or VFX, were a big team effort. Supervisors Tim Burke and David Vickery coordinated across vendors like ILM, DNEG, Rodeo FX, CineSite, Untold Studios, and Host VFX. That pipeline handled creatures, big environment extensions, and magic, things like Skeletor's Havoc Staff and the reconstitution of the Sword of Power. On the cast side, Nicholas Galitzine takes on Prince Adam, with Camila Mendes as Tila, Jared Leto as Skeletor, Alison Brie as Evil Lyn, and Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms. Quick IDs there. Tila is Captain of the Guards, Evil Lyn is Skeletor's sorceress ally, and Man-at-Arms, also called Duncan, is Adam's mentor and Tila's adoptive father.
Let's get to the story. The film reframes Adam as an Earth-raised outsider. As an adult, he's working in human resources, yes, HR, in Oklahoma City, which is a funny contrast to his destiny. He lives with his friend Hussein, who becomes a nice reality check later on. Adam has these hazy memories of Eternia. He sketches them obsessively. Then he finds the Sword of Power at a comic shop, which pulls Beastman, Skeletor's savage enforcer, to Earth. Beastman is voiced by Gary Martin, with motion capture performers giving him physicality, and he can control creatures, which makes that Earth chase feel properly dangerous.
From there, Tila, who's a battle-tested leader, rescues Adam and brings him back to Eternia. He lands in a world under Skeletor's boot. Skeletor, played by Jared Leto, is presented as a disfigured warlock whose obsession with the sword drives his tyranny. Adam reconnects with old allies in a rough way. He and Tila are even tossed in a cell with a battered Duncan and a reprogrammed Roboto. Roboto is a heroic, mechanical ally, voiced here by Kristen Wiig, which is a fun subversion and gives the character a very distinct personality.
Then the heroic warriors rally. We get Fisto, who's Duncan's younger brother with that iconic metal fist, Ram Man with those devastating headbutts, Mechanic with the extendable neck, and Diane, who bullied Adam as a kid but ends up fighting alongside him. It builds to Adam embracing the power of Grayskull through the sword and becoming, publicly, He-Man. There's a brutal personal rivalry in there too. Sam C. Wilson's Trapjaw, a cyborg enforcer, injures Duncan early on, and Duncan later faces him in a deadly duel.
The stakes climb when Skeletor takes King Randor hostage. Randor is Adam's father, played by James Purefoy. During a clash, Debris fatally injures Randor, who uses his last moments to express pride in Adam. That moment hardens Adam's resolve. Skeletor then seizes the sword, terrorizes Eternia, and executes dissenters, including Mossman, which really establishes how ruthless his regime is. It's heavy, but it clarifies the cost of failure.
Here's where it gets really interesting. In the climax, Skeletor shatters the Sword of Power and mortally wounds Adam, pushing him into a trance-like limbo. The sorceress, played by Morena Baccarin and serving as guardian of Castle Grayskull, appears in his mind and reveals that the power of Grayskull actually lives in Adam himself, not in the sword. That's a subtle but important shift. It reframes the myth. The relic is a conduit, but the hero is the true wellspring. Adam reanimates the sword, defeats Skeletor, and saves Eternia.
And while Skeletor appears to disintegrate, Evil Lyn gets away. The epilogue fast-forwards 6 months. Eternia is restored. Queen Marlena, Adam's mother, and an ex-astronaut from Earth, played by Charlotte Riley, reigns, which literally bridges Earth and Eternia in the monarchy. Adam claims the He-Man name publicly, Roboto gets refurbished, and Hussein visits Eternia to see that Adam's wild stories were real. Also, Cringer, voiced by Tom Wilton, with a younger voice by Fletcher Glenn, reunites with Adam, paying off that classic bond.
Post-credits tags tee up the future. We see Orko, a magician from the parallel world of Trolla, hinting he might have nudged events. We meet Princess Adora, also known as She-Ra, fighting in the Fright Zone, and we watch Evil Lyn retrieve Skeletor's skull. None of that spells out a sequel, but it does open doors in an exciting way.
Before we get to big questions, a quick shout on the music. Daniel Pemberton composed the score. He's the film's composer. Think themes, orchestration, the whole sonic identity. And Brian May, the guitarist from Queen, collaborated on the soundtrack. That adds a rock heroic edge on top of the orchestral bass, which fits the oversized operatic energy of He-Man's world.
All right, on to the ambiguity that fans keep circling. Orko's possible influence on earlier events. The film gives us a playful tag where he hints that he might have steered things, but it's not specific. Personally, I like the idea that he nudged fate here and there. It makes the mystical layer feel more alive. Magic in this universe is whimsical and unruly. A subtle Orko whisper at the right time could explain a coincidence without stealing Adam's agency.
I hear that. I kind of prefer the ambiguity staying, though. Leaving it unsolved lets fans theorize, and it keeps Adam's journey clean. If Orko did anything, I like it being tiny nudges rather than big pushes. The sorceress already reframes power as internal. If Orko's hand is too heavy, it undercuts that theme. So yeah, keep it mysterious. Let the community puzzle that one out.
Why keep it mysterious, though? What's the upside beyond fan speculation?
Two things. First, suspense. If there's a sequel, the writers can either reveal a clever Orko breadcrumb or pivot away without contradiction. Second, theme cohesion. The 2026 film says the power of Grayskull is within Adam. Ambiguity around outside help preserves that idea. It's like, yes, magic exists, but self-actualization is the engine.
That's close to the heart of it. In terms of pop culture connective tissue, Dolph Lundgren's cameo is a perfect example of legacy done right. It acknowledges the 1987 film's cult status without dragging the new movie back to earthbound hijinks. And the mid-credits reveal of Princess Adora, who becomes She-Ra, signals that the universe can expand into Etheria and the Horde. That's a smart way to honor history while sketching a future.
Speaking of futures, what if Netflix hadn't canceled the film in 2023? Under that path, Kyle Allen was set as He-Man, and the Nee brothers, Aaron and Adam, were steering the ship with writer David Callahan. I imagine we might have gotten a more intimate, streamer-friendly take. Maybe fewer massive crowd battles and more character-driven beats, still mythic, but scaled for home viewing windows. I could see a tighter runtime and a stronger focus on Adam's Earth life carrying into Eternia in a more grounded way.
I can picture that. And if Netflix had built it out, I think we'd be looking at a streaming universe, maybe a series of films or limited series spin-offs. One could track Teela's rise as captain of the guards, another could go deep on the sorceress and Castle Grayskull, and a separate thread could follow Adora into the Fright Zone long before a big crossover. The Nee brothers set down a lot of story groundwork that survived into the final film. On streaming, that spine might have branched into character arcs with more breathing room.
Either way, the actual 2026 route benefited from consolidation. Chris Butler came in to refine the script, Travis Knight shepherded production, and Amazon MGM kept the UK shoot tight. Then you've got Sony Pictures releasing international, handling the overseas rollout, while Amazon MGM handled the US. That's a clean handoff. The movie premiered at the TCL Chinese Theater in May 2026 and hit US theaters in June 2026. Critics said it walked the line between nostalgia and a new on-ramp, which, yeah, that checks out.
Real talk, the detail that sticks with me is the reframing of power. When the sorceress tells Adam the power lives in him, not in the sword, it's a simple statement with a lot of weight. In my head, that's the movie's heartbeat. It's not that artifacts are meaningless, it's that they're amplifiers. The person holding them still matters most. That's a universal idea in a very colorful package.
So there we have it, folks. Stay curious and keep exploring.
Thanks for joining us on Laid Back Learning. See you next time.